In this example, we will be making a mail merge document using the Word software, but we will also be using Excel to actually create a data file for the actual data itself. We will begin by looking at the data file. For this example, I've just started with 5 fields: title, forename, surname, male, female, and town. For your projects, you need to look at another 5 as a minimum, so you have 10 different fields. These could be a full address, for example, postcode, telephone number, but also they should include things which are specific to your individual projects. That would make sense for the individual businesses which you are creating your projects for. Right, so fill in the form. Also, you need at least 10 people filled into the data itself. So 10 fields across as a minimum, and you need 10 people installed into the Excel file itself. Save it. Remember where you've saved it. I would recommend saving it on your home drives and not an USB stick for this example. Right, so the next step is to attach the actual Word document to the data file we've just made in Excel. Do this by going to Mailings, select recipients, use existing list, then we point it to the actual location of our data file itself. Click Open. It will ask you on which sheet the data is located. If you've just done one sheet, then it should be on sheet 1. And also the first row of data contains column headers, so make sure there's a tick there. If I do that, these will light up, which shows that you've got the data into your file. So I'm going to make the very simplest of automation here. So I'm going to write a very simple beginning of a letter. So dear, and then I use insert merge fields. Then the titles from your Excel file should appear here in the drop down menu. So for example, for this letter I want dear, Mr, space, and then the surname, a comma, and I press return. If I want to see if that's worked, I click the button preview results, and it's taken the data from the first line of the Excel file. That in itself is not impressive, but when you look at these buttons here, you can cycle through 3 people I had in my database or in my Excel file, and it changes the content of the actual letter itself. You can continue with that by writing as much as you like or as little as you like, using the data which you have in your merge fields. So for example, you could write your letter saying something like it was a pleasure seeing you, to see you on the event we held at, and maybe you could use the town name in there, so when you cycle through it remembers where the event was. Right, so we're going to use a rule feature here, which is called if then else. If I look at the merge fields I have here, and I look at male female, this field here, male female, for example for myself there, it's a male obviously, and then when I cycle through to Mrs. Roberts, it's a female. Now what I'm going to do is use that field, and I'm going to apply a rule to it, if then else. So if the male female is equal to M, then I could, for example, sell a trousers or a hat or whatever. So I could say there is a discount on in the store, for example, and otherwise I could have discount on a skirt in the store. So I know it's very sexist, but when I cycle through this then, for a Mr. it's the trousers, and for a Mrs. it's a skirt. Now you could be more advanced in the way you use that and use it, for example, in your projects to look at particular drop-off points for bus transport, for example, target individual children according to age, for example. So you could do a rule, if then else, so if the field or date of birth is more than a certain range, then you could target a specific group of parents, for example toddlers, for an event at somewhere like Greenwood. Or you could actually look at, if you're looking at the context of a zoo or something, you could have a look at maybe storing their favourite animal, and when there's a special event with that animal there, you actually write to them specifically telling them that the event is on at the zoo. So you need to think carefully about the context and the content of your letter, and try to get as much of the information which you have stored in a data field into your letter. You can, of course, if you find out after a while that we should put that data field in, you could always go back to Excel and change the actual data, or add an additional field which will then appear in this column when you reopen the document. Remember to save your work as you go on, and also remember to actually switch this on and off to actually look at the actual field the merge fields themselves in your letter.